Thank you all for coming. Welcome to the 38th webinar that we've done in this series. This webinar here is going to be AiM Sports data hardware and the integration of that hardware into different types of levels of installs. We get a lot of questions about yeah, hey, I have this project I'm working on, this race car, this bike, this this UTV. What is the right device for that? What is the pluses and minuses of this device if I choose to do this one? Or I have this, I want to expand it to do this and this. Can I do that? We have a lot of those kind of questions. So because of that, we thought let's do this webinar where we chat about what we get asked a lot. And I know not only here at Tech Support, but AiM dealers get this question a lot, and there's a lot of slight differences in the hardware, and we've built a really wide range of pieces that are available to you that we just need to understand the differences. So we're going to do that today. Who we've got here is we've got Robbie and Bryc. They've been Robbie pressed into service here 2 days this week as co-hosts. I appreciate him doing that. And we've got Bryc from our Roanoke office. Bryc has been darn consistent on the backside, working, answering questions and answers, and doing all the things, and being at every webinar. This is I think the first one, Bryc, that you've been a co-host in. So that's pretty cool. This is more of a roundtable. We're going to chat back and forth with all the folks that are here live and answer questions back and forth. We're going to talk about the different the range of the product lineup and some of those different expansions and different ways to do that. So Robbie, give us a little bit of background on, let me click on this one time here. Give us a little bit of background on you, and just to introduce yourself, what you do with AiM, and then we'll jump into the different products.
Well, I do a lot of the custom harnessing. I have a counterpart, Cameron, in the East Coast office, and I also do a lot of the North America ECU development, and pepper in a handful of repairs that get past the level 1 and level 2 technicians.
Perfect. And Bryc, give us a little bit about yourself. This is your first time you've co-hosted before. You've been with us for a year or two here at AiM, right? I got the picture here in front of us of you at the PRI show with Robbie, looking like you're pretty cool there. Give us a little bit more background about what you do here.
Hey, yeah, that's me. So I'm this time no longer just the guy answering questions in the background and making incredibly witty comments in the chat. But I'm in the East Coast office with Cameron and Robinson and Corey. I'm much more of an entry-level tech at the moment than my counterpart Robbie here. But I've been with AiM for about 1.5 years now. And I really like it because I'm a big car guy, I'm a big traveling guy, and get to do both at this job. So it's a lot of fun.
Perfect. The Bryc has learned a ton in a short time. He sells himself maybe a little bit short. He's pretty smart about this stuff. This is one of those jobs that experience does mean things, right? There's a lot of things here, and it's pretty technical, and Bryc has picked it up pretty darn quick. So we appreciate that. I see there's been some questions are starting to come in. Continue to do that. I seen one question in the that I'll just say real quickly, and then we'll get into it as we go. It's the normal or the original. I'll just use the example of the MXG versus the MXG 1.2. Robbie and Bryc, when we get to that point, we can talk about that difference between the originals and the 1.2 versions. That's a question that does come up a lot as well. Okay. Bryc is the test driver, is what I see in the notes in the chat box. That is true. We use his data in some of these things. There's a document that is out there that I'm going to use a couple of screen captures as just kind of a base discussion point to kind of start us on this discussion, and that's the AiM Sports Racing Guide 2020. And Robbie, you'll probably throw a link up into the chat box. There it is, right there. It's available out on the AiM website as well. We may visit the AiM website as we go through the day today as well. But this is a pretty good document. Gives you a lot of good information about the range of the products. If you do not have that, go ahead and download that zip file, open it up. It's a large file. It was a print ready type of a document, so it ends up being fairly large. But you can scroll through there and learn a lot of technical details and a lot of different things about the product line. So that's a worthwhile document. Take that, download that if you get a chance. This gives us kind of a quick look at the levels. And if I go to the next page, here's another chart that's in that book. And this is where we're going to kind of stay, and we're going to spend some time right here, and we're going to start to talk a little bit about the different levels. And we're basically going to start at the left edge of this, and Bryc and Robbie will spend the bulk of the time. But we'll talk about the first level, the Solo 2, right? And the GPS lap timers. If you read across the top of the thing, we're going to kind of go across those. What is this GPS lap timer thing? What does it do with us? What is the strengths? What are some of the things that you may want to understand before you buy that and think that you can end up putting suspension sensors or something on it, right? We just need to understand its level of the lack of expansion when that time comes. So we're going to talk about GPS lap timers. We're going to talk about LCD dash loggers, TFT color dash loggers, the Evo logger series. Not a picture down here, but TFT dashes, the Strata version stuff, Smarty Cams. We're going to give it an update as we know it right now with PDMs. And then we'll also talk as part of this whole thing, because each one of these needs some of these other pieces to add to it. We're going to talk about expansions and bridges and dashes for the Evos and different things. And of course, cart systems, a big part of what we do, and stopwatches and anything else you guys want to chat about. Give you an idea. But so let's start off, and maybe we'll turn it over to Robbie to give us a quick overview. But let's talk about the Solo line, and we'll be generic solos, and there's two different versions of that. Give us a quick overview, Robbie, of the Solo and the Solo 2 DL.
The Solo and the Solo 2 and the Solo 2 DL only differ with the ability to add CAN information. So Solo 2 DL has 2 CAN buses, whereas the Solo 2 does not have any CAN bus. Solo 2 is based on GPS technology only. So while that doesn't sound very impressive, GPS technology allows us to have GPS speed, positional analysis. So that's your track map and driveline association. We can do lap timing from it. We can also interpret accelerometers for lateral and longitudinal, manage your altitude. So it's with the GPS, Solo 2 and Solo 2 DL are one of my favorite data loggers. They're simple, they fit in a bag really nicely, battery operated. So if you don't have to, it's not cumbersome with wiring, and can easily be put into any vehicle just to get lap times and predictive timing right away.
Perfect. You have anything to add to that, Bryc? Any of your experience with Solo 2s out there? Anything you like to add to that?
Well, the data that we looked at a couple webinars ago was from it was a Solo 2 DL, but there was a lot of good GPS info that we got from that one that the standard Solo 2 would get as well. And with the Solo 2 DL, we have the addition of being able to get vehicle CAN, as well as there's a wide range of ECUs that we communicate with, and we can get a lot more information just from that in a lot of vehicles. The other benefit to the DL is you can add one of our Smarty Cams to that and have the overlay, and you can also add a LCU1 Lambda controller if you wanted with that. So differences between the Solo 2 and the Solo 2 DL there.
Yeah, perfect. And as the chart kind of shows here, it does say expansions, and it shows a checkbox there. But it is limited on those expansions, as Bryc just mentioned, to the Smarty Cam and an LCU1, and only one LCU1. So.
Yeah, and an important thing to note about the Solo 2 DL is a question we get a lot is if you can add analog sensors. Like if you want to add if you don't get brake pressure or something like that from your car and you want to add an analog sensor, you will have to go up to the next step for things like that. It's not a capability for analog sensors.
Exactly, exactly. And I will add just a little bit from my side. My experience is it is such a fantastic device. It will get you there on the data analysis side. 75, 80, some people will say 90% of the way of data that you need, you can get from a Solo 2. And the only thing that it would be missing is because of the lack of the ECU connection, is maybe you don't get the ECU data coming from the driver inputs, the throttle, the brake pressure, and the steering, that you might get from the ECU connection. And once you add that, your Solo DL is 95% of what most people would end up wanting in what my area of expertise is in that, that data analysis and trying to do those three things, driver performance, vehicle health. You can get a lot of that. Of course, if you wanted to, the additional analog channels where you might want to do shock pots or some other things, the Solo 2 runs out of steam that way as far as the expansion. So I have also seen people that maybe they've got 2 or 3 buddies, and they're track day guys, and they move them around. They buy one of them, and then they have a motorcycle that they run on some track days, and they'll have the mount there with it, and they can get an additional cable where it powers it up and is just sitting there ready to go. You move it from your sports car into your motorcycle, and then wintertime comes and they take it from the motorcycle and put it onto the snow machine and run it on that. So it is such a powerful tool that way. There are a lot of people that may have an MXP or an MXG in their cars, and they also have a Solo because it's so easy to move around. The digits are a little bit bigger for old guys like me that want to see our predictive lap timing. It's you have that ability as well. You can put that right up in the corner, and you can see that maybe a little bit better. And then the final thing. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say there's a relevant question there that sort of was covered already from Ricardo, but he said how much of a difference is there in data collection between the Solo 2 DL and the Solo 2? We kind of covered that already, but the Solo 2 is just GPS information. And when I say just, I mean there's still a lot you can do with that. And then the Solo 2 DL allows you to get vehicle CAN from a lot of vehicles, and then also add SmartyCam and LC1 if you want. So that's really the main difference.
Perfect. You as an end user would not notice the difference between the two, other than there's some additional channels in the column on the left of your data analysis software. So perfect. And the other thing that I like about the Solo that a lot of people I get a lot of feedback from is it does have a row of LED lights on the sides, and those can be used as shift lights if you've got it connected to your ECU, getting an RPM channel, or it can be used as predictive lap timing. And that is a light, instead of having to read the numbers, you can just see out of your peripheral vision the predictive lighting moving up and down. So very, very, very powerful, very, very powerful tool.
From a hardware standpoint, the Solo DL and the Solo 2 DL the Solo 2 DL has an upgraded GPS module that allows it to access more satellite constellations. So our satellite count is constantly up, our triangulation is much better, and our GPS accuracy channel has shrunk. Where we used to measure in feet or meters, we now measure in inches and centimeters.
And that's the difference between a Solo and a Solo 2, that step between the two, right? Good point. It has the core of our GPS 08 GPS sensor built into it. So, anything else on the Solo, guys, that you might want to add before we move up to the next one? And I haven't seen any questions. Okay, perfect. The MXM, the next topic up here above would be the LCD dash loggers. That's kind of the next step in the range and things that it might do for you. The MXM is a fairly new product. The maybe a year and a half, 2 years old, something like that. It is something that a lot of people have wanted for a long time. I've been around this stuff for a while. We used to have the Micron 3 auto gauge that was this gauge that a lot of folks in the amateur sports car group wanted. Robbie, give us just a brief overview of the MXM and just its base capabilities.
MXM offers ECU integration, but it provides something that the Solo 2 DL lacks, and that's 4 analog channels. So it's got the capability of receiving up to 4 sensor datas that aren't available from the ECU. it's a perfect pair. Tom Harris loves the MXM. He did a webinar with us about the Dirt Oval, the Dirt Oval webinar that we just released, and it fits so nicely. The price point is attractive. It does everything that you want it to do and has the ability for growth. So if you're missing that brake pressure channel, you can add a brake pressure sensor. If you wanted to do linear potentiometers, you can add linear potentiometers to it. There's four analog channels that can be configured to do as you please.
And it has the ability to use our expansion modules, as you mentioned. But I think it, and you help me if you can, I believe it's limited to just one expansion module on the MXM. Is that true?
It is limited to the same, it has the same limitations that the Solo 2 DL has. So the expansion capabilities are the Lambda controller and the SmartyCam.
Yeah, so no channel expansion, but able to do the do the SmartyCam and the LCU one. Okay.
Also, that one is limited to 4 analog sensors.
Because you cannot do a channel expansion on that particular unit.
Right. Yeah.
And it has the gray and white or black and white LCD dash. Those, I get that question a lot of sunlight coming in, and boy, it has been my experience, like with the Solo, that when you get some sunlight on it, it actually gets darker and easier to read, right? So everybody, if you got that open wheel car, right, maybe a Spec Racer Ford or something, and you're really worried about that sun, and I get that question any number of times, this really is not much of a problem. I mean, if it sits in the Arizona sun for all day, right, and the sun is directly on it, it can start to overheat maybe a touch, just like any other, anything else with a screen. But the visibility on our loggers is actually very, very good.
Yeah, we switched to a dot matrix display, so it allows for better resolution of the numbers, but it also helps with solar glare and things like that. So the inverse is also true. So Arizona sun or Minnesota winters.
There you go. I shouldn't leave them out, right? It is summertime though. I do have my mind in the sunshine. Anything else you have, Bryc, about the MXM that's interesting and something you think that people might want to know?
I think it was pretty much covered.
There's a couple things that I noticed over here in the chat real quickly, and I see on the thing, these devices we've talked about also do have accelerometers built in and gyros, right? So while we do call that a GPS data logger, there are channels in there that are sensor based as well that we can get. So we do have true accelerometers and gyros in those units as well. And the other thing about those first 3 is that you can see all the way down here at the bottom, it talks about 2 things I want to come from the table. Is we've got this the body type, and these bottom 3 are nylon fiber for the body type. It makes them a lot lighter weight, a lot easier. They are extremely robust. One of the questions I have written down here that I wanted to chat with Robbie, because he's pretty deep into it. The MXM is also the core with maybe a different firmware change and maybe some hardware differences of the MX UTV, the product that we have designed that is basically a plug and play for the UTV market. Can you give us a little bit of an update on the background on that MX UTV?
MX UTV is more closely related to our Micron 5 product, but what we allowed for is the implementation of ECU integration. Everything is set up on a Micron 5 with the display. There's no user configuration. Race Studio 3 isn't required to set up the visual display. You go in and you set up your pages, you set up your vehicle type. MX UTV is specific to a Polaris Razor, a QandA MX3, Arctic or Textron, and soon to be the Kawasaki. So, but there is one thing that we all did not mention, and that is the MXM has one feature that none of our systems currently available have, and it's the power distribution. There's a second DT connector on the back. It has 4 pins, and the MXM is capable of pulling power directly from a battery system or potential energy and dictating when to send it out to another device. So you can actually program, just like you program an alarm to turn on when water temperature is above 220 degrees. We can also program at 190 degrees to turn the fan on and not turn the fan off until 170 degrees. And that is, it's a beautiful when you added a second fan to your radiator or your intercooler. How do you turn it on? Are you bound by a switch that you have to remember to turn on? Do you have notes in your car that say don't forget? This takes that away. You can just set the function to turn on given water temperature and GPS speed, or water temperature and RPM, and it becomes a much more integrated system in your car.
Perfect. Perfect. And I did get it confused with the MX. I'm sorry, the Micron 5 and the MXM. The shape is similar, right? But it is a different thing. And then the last thing that I see across the bottom here is the recording capability. The memory size is similar across the board here, right? So so even these smaller entry level devices, they have very, very strong on the size of the memory. So keep that in mind. So memory shouldn't be a deciding factor on any of your choices as you're looking at these different units. So perfect. Okay, maybe we'll go to Bryc first on the next one. The next one I want to chat about is kind of an old standby for us, right? It's been when we first got into the automotive world, we had the MXL, and it has that classic race car shape, race car display shape to it, and then when we came with the new generation of hardware, one of the first devices we came in with was the MXL2. And the MXL2 is still a favorite of a lot of folks. Maybe Bryc, maybe give us a little bit of an update on what it does versus some of the stuff that we've already talked about and some of the differences there.
Yeah, so the MXL2, which obviously replaced the MXL, which was kind of a staple when we go back to Race Studio 2 hardware, it's really kind of a Swiss Army knife. You can use it in just about anything. It's a fairly simple, easy to read LCD display, and it's the first one of our fully expandable data loggers. So any sort of AiM CAN expansion modules that you want to add to it, you can. You can expand as many analog channels as you want. It's really the first one that can do it all.
Perfect. And Robbie, we see these things around everywhere, right? All the way from some UTVs. I see these in some UTVs. I see them in some of the newer Robbie Gordon Stadium super trucks, and of course across the board on sports cars and motorcycles. A little bit of background from you on some of the ways that you see that it's different.
First, what I like about the MXL2 is the shape form. I mean,
Exactly.
it fits into any dash bezel that we know of today, and it's kind of where we've been at in dash technology up until this point, until we started the TFTs, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But the MXL2 it's got a blended LCD dot matrix display. So while the RPM sweeper is fixed, and the channels or the plus minus best are fixed positions, there's a little window that can be completely customizable. So you can actually show one channel, or you can show one big numbered channel, or you can show four smaller sized channels, and it has pages that you can cycle through. So it gives it a lot more flexibility than its predecessor, the MXL. And with 4 gigabytes of memory, the MXL piece that started with, and Emiliano's gonna blast me for this, but it started with 16 megabytes of memory. And then I think we were able to unlock with firmware 32 megabytes of memory. So to go from 32 megabytes of memory to 4 gigs of memory is
huge difference.
It's massive.
Yeah, massive. The alarm LEDs, the shift lights, and all of that stuff, just like on the MXM, the ones that we have more available to us on the MXL2, but they're all totally configurable in the software. We change colors, flash rates, you know, what each LED does. So it's very, very, very powerful that way. All of them have the inertial platform that we talked about, you know, the accelerometers and the gyros and all of that as well. Everything we've had so far and we'll continue to work on till we get up to the Strata side is all Wi-Fi compatible, and Wi-Fi only on the Solo 2s and Solo DL, but Wi-Fi and wired connection on the rest of them. So also keep that in mind. And I did see a question here in the Q&A. All these use the more accurate GPS technology. As Robbie mentioned, yeah, everything that you're seeing here either built in with the MXM, Solo 2 DL, or Solo 2. The antenna is built in, where everything else will use the external GPS sensor, and all of them are the GPS 08. Could go back to an old GPS 05 if you had one, but they're all capable of the 08, the latest and greatest one we have right now. So, okay, and if there's nothing else on the that's the last of our TFT or that LCD screen, you know, type. More, you know, gray, black and white kind of looking thing. Let's step into the TFT dash loggers. We got several, you know, the three of them that most people will look at: the MXS, the MXP, and the MXG. Robbie, maybe give us they're all kind of similar in what they can do. So let's kind of talk about them as a group, but with their differences. Give us an idea of what they are, what's the strengths, and then the basic differences between them.
These are what I like to call the MXX series, because from a hardware standpoint, from a processor standpoint, they're all relatively similar. They all offer you the 8 analog channels, the 4 digital RPM inputs, or wheel speed inputs, and the dedicated RPM input. So the back of them, the harnesses are all backwards compatible. MXL2, you could pop it out and plug in an MXS, configure it, and you don't have to rewire the car at all. It is pin for pin compatible. So MXL2, MXS 1.2, MXP, and MXG 1.2 are all very similar. It's just the size and the shape. So we have a 5-inch, a 6-inch, and a 7-inch TFT display. The MXS and the MXG are like big brother, little brother. You have a 5-inch and a 7-inch. The MXP is very rapidly becoming one of my favorite shaped dashes. It's got a beautiful screen. The bezels are shrunk down, and the LEDs, while you only have 5 as compared to the 6 on the MXS or the 8 on the MXG, with the TFT technology, you're able to do much more. With alarm strategies. So not only can you have an alarm LED that pops up or continuously blinks on you, but you can actually change the digital font specific color. So if I want to watch a temperature, let's say my engine coolant temperature is climbing up to 190. At 200, I want it to turn yellow. So my digital font will turn yellow, and it brings my attention to the dash, but it's not something that I need to take immediate action on. And if I can manage it with less aggressive driving, or maybe getting away from someone to clear up some air, then I know to do that before it's red and it becomes a problem.
Perfect. Bryc, talk about when people are asking you questions about the 3 different sizes, right? We have that the 5, 6, and 7 diagonal measurement. Some people, my gut feeling is that MXG it looks fairly big in your hands, but when you put it in a car and maybe you've got it sunk way down, or you move the seat back, or you're a little ways away from it, it ends up being the perfect size. So what are you hearing from users about the difference on the sizing?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the application, because like Robbie said,
Very
they
much.
all can do virtually, the internals are the same. The hardware is the same. The only difference is the physical dimensions and the alarm arrangement. So I tell people, it really just matters as far as, personal preference and what fits in your vehicle. And also, if you're not sure if it fits in your vehicle, we have the technical specs on our website for all of these. So you can do like a little cardboard cutout that's actually the size, and see what fits best. But other than that, it's just personal preference. How far you're going to mount it, where you're mounting it, where it will fit, that kind of thing. So personally, I like the MXS the most. That's what I have in my car, and it fits in my dash perfectly. I can see it perfectly. But if I had a bigger car, or if I was gonna, some people will mount them rather than like directly in front of them, they'll mount it over on the console somewhere or something like that. And it might make sense to have a bigger MXG if that was the case.
Yeah, perfect. And as Robbie mentioned, there the MXP was a little bit of a, we ended up with only the warning lights on the one side, and at first that did concern some folks, but because of, as Robbie again mentioned, the strategies that you can come up with by changing things, or and having warning lights mean different things, and just the light coming on catches your peripheral vision, even if you don't see the color changes of different channels, you still very, very powerful. So still ends up working very well. Robbie, maybe you can chat with us a little bit. People who've been around a little while. We came out with the MXS and the MXG, and then there was a MXS 1.2, MXG 1.2, and now the MXP doesn't say 1.2. Give us a little bit about that whole thing that's a little confusing for some folks.
It's a major processor update. So the 1.2s, the MXP wasn't around with the original Atmel processor that we used. And we converted to a much more robust processing unit, which allowed us to grow in so many different ways. We can change the font, we can change the size of the font, we can do the color management, and we also added the backup camera, the reverse camera integration. So the difference between an MXS 1.2 and an MXS, while they still offer the 8 analog channels, the 4 digital speed inputs, the 2 CAN buses, RS-232 for serial communications, and K-line, and the harnesses are pin-for-pin compatible still. The ability to, the 1.2 offers the backup camera, the increased processing speed that gives you the ability to change the display in a much more unique way. And it gives us room for growth. We can continue to add feature sets to these devices.
Speaking as that, and maybe Bryc, you can handle this one a little bit. In the question and answer, can you talk about the SLM integration, the shift light module, one of the expansions, kind of ties in with this 1.2, non-1.2 discussion. Do you have anything to add about shift light modules, and how does that integrate with the product line?
So that's just an external module that basically gives you a remote shift light. So, pretty much all of our dash loggers are going to have a built-in shift light. The reason you would want to use a shift light module is if maybe that dash isn't directly in the driver's field of view, you don't want them looking down at the dash or over to the side or wherever you have it mounted. If you have a remote shift light module, you can mount that, somewhere up high where it's directly in the driver's view. So, any vehicle where it's critical to pay attention to that, those will certainly help.
Yeah, perfect. Sometimes that shift light module, this is shift lights of a display are blocked by the upper rim of your steering wheel or something, and having the ability to put that remote shift light module is pretty powerful. Robbie, but some of them it doesn't work on, right? Where does it work?
So like MXM Solo 2DL. Let's see. I would have to.
I think if I remember right, some of the older, the MX, standard MXS, while the shift light may work, predictive lap timing doesn't work on it. Right. So that's that added power of that additional chip that allows us to do a little bit more with that shift light module. One of those things that you just got to keep in mind of the different products, and don't want you surprised if you step up and buy a used MXS and you're hoping for predictive lap timing out of a shift light module. That little piece only works on the MX, the 1.2 versions, or the MXP. So just wanted to make sure we cover that.
It is another great feature of the shift light module is that you can use it as a shift light module, or you can use it as a predictive lap timer. So let's say you require your shift lights, you're still driving by the shift lights, but you can also add a shift light module and integrate a predictive timing. So it would, with settable LEDs, you can say each LED has a 1/10 of a second value. If I see 4 LEDs that are green, I'm 4/10 faster than my best lap. If I see 4 LEDs that are red, I know I'm 4/10 slower, and maybe I make some space. It's huge for qualifying. And just getting out in the car and knowing when to make room and when to push a hot lap.
Yeah, again, just giving you the ability to expand and conform your system to something that works for you and your inside of your car, on your bike, on your snow machine, whatever it happens to be. That there's different needs for different forms of racing, and there's different needs for different people and what they like. So we do make it this as configurable as we can. So. Perfect. Let's talk about the next three that are in there. They're kind of related. The Strata versions. The Bryc, give us a little bit of a difference. There's an MXS 1.2 Strata and an MXS 1.2. What is the difference between the whole Strata line versus the MXS, the standard line?
So Strata is Italian for street, and that is because these were designed for street use, not race use. I suppose you still could use them in a race car, but the key difference here is that the Stratas do not log. So you can still add all the same expansion modules, still get all the same GPS collections, all that sort of thing, but it's not going to be logging that data. Another key difference is that those are going to come with different harnesses with different pinouts as opposed to the standard MXS 1.2 and the other two. But other than that, they are just as capable. There is also a Strata Logger Kit that you can get. It's not the greatest way to go about it, but if you do have anyone or you personally buy an MXS Strata and then realize you do want a data logging feature, you can get the Logger Kit to add the ability to save the information, add a GPS, that sort of thing. The Stratas also do not come with a GPS module, unlike the MXS standard, and so that's something you'd have to factor in also. But there is a pretty significant price difference. So these would come in handy if you were just building a really nice street car and need an instrument cluster or something along those lines. Is where we'd see it used the most.
Perfect, Robbie. You have anything to add to the Strata discussion?
I have a couple of great applications for Strata units. The import tuner market, they go through and they do it just as Bryc said. They want something that works well on the street, but then also maybe provides them lap times and allows them to add a couple extra sensors. You turboed your car, you now want oil pressure and oil temperature to be managed. This is going to give you that type of flexibility, but it doesn't have the price point of our data logging systems, and maybe you're not going to be using it. I also find that I have in custom-made dashes, especially in the off-road market, there's a lot of dash real estate to be had, and they usually have a code driver. Both of them need data, but not the same data. One would just want RPM and maybe water temperature and shift lights, and that's really it. And the other is managing the fuel consumption, the transmission temperatures, the status of the engine, whether the check engine light's on, do we have any errors? They're much more focused around data as opposed to the driver who has his hands full driving. So the Strata application comes down to the CAN bus interface. You can actually design a communication protocol using the two available CAN buses to send information from one master device to and use the other as a slave device. So like the Strata could be for the driver, and you could send him only the pertinent information that he requires, and then you have a master unit that has all the control and flexibility.
And while we have talked a little bit in previous webinars of looking at Bryc's data from VIR, and we'll use it again in the future probably, Robbie has done exactly what he just talked about. He's not only built the harnesses, but he's out there rolling around in the, probably a bad word, racing around in the deserts of the Southeast as a co-driver in some UTVs. So Robbie has gained some experience with that, and because of that, he is even fine-tuned that whole thing of creating those two dashes for the different uses, and it's very, very popular in off-road rally racing, that kind of thing where you end up with a co-driver that can help you with the minute by minute, second by second data side, plus of course the long-term data, data analysis side. So
with any of the MXL to the or the MXS, the MXP, the MXG 1.2, they offer a CAN expansion for the GS dash, and that is a very simple integration. It's just like adding the shift light module or a Lambda controller. You go in and you say, I would like to add a GS dash, and then you can configure the GS dash, the alarms on the GS dash, all within the main configuration of the master device. So that's beneficial for any vehicle. And I've seen beautiful installations where they have an MXG 1.2 and in tandem a formula steering wheel. So the formula steering wheels, their radio button controls, their menu selection and paddle shifting, and it also has available data on the display for them. But then they have the MXL or the MXG off to the side that has more pertinent information and is there to alert them if something major happens. But the important information is right on the steering wheel.
Perfect. The next one I wanted to chat about is not on in the imagery here, but it's the Evo line of loggers, right? We have three that are pretty darn popular. One that is the older Evo 4, which there's just tons of them out there, and then we've got the Evo 4S and the Evo 5. Bryc, maybe give us, I'm asking questions here. We have not practiced this, obviously, so I'm asking questions that I hope everybody knows. So far, everybody is just hitting it out of the park as far as the questions we've had up in the box and the stuff I'm throwing out there. But Bryc, give us a little bit of an overview of Evo 4, Evo 4S, Evo 5, if you can.
Yeah, so the Evo 4 is still, not in production anymore. That's one of the Race Studio 2 managed devices. But we do still see it quite a lot. It's used in a ton of different applications. We have them, coming in for service and stuff often, and we see a lot of them still. They're definitely still out there. And the other two, the Evo 4S, which replaced the Evo 4, and the Evo 5, those are still the current units. We see those mostly in formula cars and motorcycles, and that's because of just mounting needs. So both of these units are just little black box data loggers. They don't have any sort of screen or anything attached to them. If you do want to have a display, there is it was the G dash for the Evo 4 and now the GS dash for the Evo 4S and the Evo 5. But that'll add a remote display. So if you do need that, you have the option there, but you don't have to have it. And like I said, these are just very easy to mount in tight quarters. So that's probably why we see them in formula car or motorcycle applications. But they are full loggers, just like pretty much any of our dash loggers. You can add any of our expansions to them. You can add analog channels. All that stuff is still going to be the same and pretty similar.
Robbie, technically, the difference between an Evo 4S and an Evo 5, as far as the internals and the power, what do you see as the biggest differences between those?
The Evo 5 implements much. It's the same technology as MXS, MXP, MXG 1.2. It uses the Autosport connectors and provides you with the 8 analog channels, and it very closely follows the MXX family line in its capabilities. The Evo 4S has the analog channels. It uses the Binder 712 connectors, and it only has 5 analog channels. Full expandability still, but doesn't have the secondary CAN bus. So it's a different package, but they still offer the same IMU, so the internal accelerometers and the gyros are still present. And that's one thing that I really like about the Evo family line is we spent all this time on our webinars discussing calibration of our accelerometers and our gyros, and to me, being in the center of gravity on the vehicle is the best way to get to make those math channels work for you and work for you consistent and well. The Evo 5 gives you the option to put a data logger at the center of gravity of the vehicle or as close to it as you can get there. So we also had a comment from Paul. He says he's having problems with his dash mounting. Evo family line would simplify this dramatically because the data logger can be mounted anywhere in the vehicle and you run a dash display. So that could be a formula steering wheel or a GS dash that is used for your heads up display for the driver, but everything's built into the black box.
Perfect. And one of the things that I get asked a lot too is Evo 4S is cable only download. No Wi-Fi in the Evo 4S, and we do have Wi-Fi on the Evo 5. So another small little thing that's some people just you may want to know if you're going to mount it in something like that.
And one other thing to add about the 5 too is it does have an SD card slot. So if you are doing any sort of endurance racing, and the car comes into pits and you just need to grab that data super quick, that's the system to do it with, because you can just pop the SD card out, slide the other one in, and you're good to go. We have other systems that you can add that to, but the Evo 5 has that already built in. And also one question that's relevant here that we got from Donald. He said, can the Evo 4 be upgraded to an Evo 4S or an Evo 5? It cannot, no. Those different hardware, different software manages it.
Different case body. It's
completely different, yeah.
And then the SD cards, even with the memory module and everything, and in Bryc, you hit on this. They're hot swappable. The car could still be running, and you can pull that SD card out, put in a new SD card. It gets formatted, and then the data is then starting on the new SD card. And that is something that gets overlooked quite a bit. You just pull it right out. There's no shutdown process necessary.
Quick pit stops, right? Especially endurance racing, but you got a little bit more time endurance racing, but it's hard to grab that data during even a 5-minute pit stop when everything is going around, or desert UTV, that type of a thing. It sure is nice to go in and just pull that card out, put it back in. Everybody else is working on other stuff, and you're off and running.
Everything's so hectic. You got people doing tires or fuel, and everyone's running around. The last thing you want is a cable in your laptop.
Yeah, can't.
Just hold on. I need a couple more seconds.
One more minute.
Yeah.
rum. And a little bit about people that use these. Another area that they use these things is I see a lot of folks. Peter Krause is big in the vintage racing market. If you have a vintage race car or something where maybe you're not supposed to have a logger and you might want to have a logger, I don't condone that, but maybe that happens. But the vintage one is what I'll focus on. Let's say you got this vintage race car that's just so period specific and looking cool, but underneath the seat somewhere you can have an Evo 4S or an Evo 5, and it's grabbing data that has been wired in, and maybe just a small little GPS sensor somewhere where it's not jumping out. The car still looks very vintage and very period correct, and yet you're getting the data that you want and need for vehicle health and driver and car performance.
Your lap times are coming down, and everyone's wondering how you're doing it.
Exactly.
That's also another good point for the Solo, is that when we did some dirt oval, it fits into my driver suit pocket. So you just put on your driver suit and a Solo in my pocket, and away we went.
There are times when maybe the officials, and again, I do not condone this at all, but there are times when there's a couple devices here that you can throw in your pocket or hide under the seat or up in the roof or whatever, right? And some people are interested in that. So.
Yeah, if you're not pushing the limits of the rules, are you really trying to win, right?
Exactly. So so that's the Evo line, and again, we touched briefly on the older Evo 4s. There are a ton of those out there, but then the Evo 4S is just the next step of that. It uses the newer replaceable GPS sensor and all of that, which is kind of nice. So those whole Evo loggers are a very, very powerful tool in what we do. The next one in line, we're getting a few minutes away from finishing this up. Hopefully we're getting all your questions. I see a few questions in the chat, and most of the ones that are in the Q&A box we've been either answering or been answering with a written answer. Continue to keep those coming. The next one, Robbie, the MXSL. What is the what is the thing there? What does that device do for us? How does that fit in?
MXSL is much like the MXM. Well, it's our approach at distributing power throughout the vehicle in a very solid state way. So we receive in power, and then we can dictate power out, and we can set electronic fuses, much like in the MXM. We don't have to wire in relays. We don't have to wire in fuses. From a wiring perspective, it simplifies almost everything because it's electronic. I go in and say, I want my water temperature to turn on at 190, or I want my fan to turn on when my water temperature gets to 190 degrees, like in our previous example, and I can show that the fan is on, that it's running. I can calculate how much current that fan is requiring to be turned on and to run sustained. So the MXSL is upfront interface that allows you to run power into it, set an electronic fuse or relay system, and then dictate power out to several devices. And it could be used for your turn signals. It could be used for your high beams, your low beams, your secondary fan, almost anything in the vehicle.
So it does what the MXM does, but it does it even bigger and better. And it's based, it's got the aluminum body, so it's more based on the MXS platform. It would be my guess. I was wrong on the last one I guessed on, but color screen, aluminum body, and then that type of technology that it's using. Bryc, you have anything to add about that one?
I do not know.
Okay. Before we jump into just a little background on the PDMs, I did see a question there. Is any of this adaptable telemetry? Telemetry is a word that gets thrown around a little bit, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. That we have our normal data acquisition, which almost all of the Stratas don't have that, where we're actually gathering the data, and then either with Wi-Fi or cable, we bring it onto a laptop and we do our data analysis. Some folks use that word telemetry as that process, but telemetry is really more of a specialized term, which means that the data loggers that are in the cars are transmitting, typically on a radio frequency, that data in real time, and it's being captured by somebody off to the side at the track, or sometimes even remotely, and we're looking at that data. That's what telemetry might mean. And as of right now, any of the AiM devices you see here will not do telemetry in the correct term of the word meaning of the word. So, some people do ask about Wi-Fi and the connection, because you can get live, we call it live measures in our software, and you can be Wi-Fi distance away from a car. I have never found that to be something that we can connect fast enough to, and then getting data while the thing is working around. That is there is some thought that some people might be able to use that as telemetry, true telemetry, but I haven't found that to be something that works. Had a couple of guys that tried it and did not have great luck in the quarter midget world, where the tracks are so small and they're right above the cars where they're running. They're never more than maybe even 80 to 100 feet away, and even that was problematic. Wi-Fi is just not the right thing for that. So, you guys have anything to add about telemetry and correct me?
No, I think you're right on. For me, telemetry is something that can be done. It needs to be done graphically. I need to have a history of it. Our live measures just doesn't help.
Recording it.
Right. It's not recording it. We can't look back and see a trend. We just see the instantaneous value, and the communication rate is a little bit too slow for what I would like in a telemetry source. We work with a lot of different companies, and having the multiple CAN buses that our systems offer allows us to send out information to any other type of device. So if your rule book allows this, you can grab a telemetry system and we can output the data to it in almost any format that they require.
There are some fairly popular ones of those that you sell your technology to send the data from the car to the track side, and then be able to store and view in real time, and then store that data as well. So those options are out there for our devices, but we as a company do not at this time do anything with true telemetry. So
I think Neil's
comes up.
I think Neil's question about the expansions and data like how we do add-ons. I think if we have time, I would really love to hit that subject.
Let's hit that, but we'll get that one in about 1 minute. First, Robbie, just to get off this page, and maybe we'll end up jumping to the website real quickly. But PDMs, we have talked about them. They're in our documentation. There are some that are out there running around we're starting to see them globally a little bit, but here in the States and here in North America, where we cover, where are we at with PDMs?
PDMs, they are hardware ready, and the software, you may have noticed it in the Race Studio 3 analysis beta, is that it is available to play around with, and you can start doing control and building configurations for it. But it's a data logging device that is also a 32 channel power distribution module. So much like the MXSL, it has an onboard data section. It supports analog channels, digital channels, and it also allows you to send power out to the entire vehicle. So you can power your ignition system, your injectors, you can power your lights, you can have them strobe, you can power your fans, you can power your fans with pulse width modulation, which is a lot of smart fans and things like that. They allow you to send out a pulse width modulated signal. So if I want to keep my temperature at 190, because I know the motor makes the most power at 190, I can spin the fan only the amount that I need to keep it at that temperature. So it starts reducing itself with this pulse width modulation control to allow the temperature to climb, or if it's starting to climb, it can spin faster, which is a really, really unique characteristic. Most fans, you turn them on and they're on full song, and it's loud, and in a street application, it's not great. You pull up to a stoplight and your fans kick on, and it's just when you're blowing dust around because you're pushing so much air. This would allow it to just turn on to regulate the temperature. So they're not clicking on and off, they're just barely spinning constantly.
Yeah, the PDM as a device is not just a PDM power distribution module, but it's the MXSL and the MXM, and it's absolutely on steroids, right? Robbie is just giving you one example. It is very, very deep in how you manage all the power of your entire vehicle, and recording the draw and the voltages in real time in very very minute, very quick samples. So
yeah,
very cool device.
There's a status channel for every power output, and it manages the current of if you've gone over current. It also manages if there's an open circuit or a short circuit. So if a wire broke, it'll flag an open circuit. If a wire is dead shorted to ground, it'll say that there has been a short circuit. If the current draw is too much, it may be developing a high temperature. We can track the temperature of it, and it helps simplify your troubleshooting. Why did my fan click off? Maybe I have a loose connection. Maybe it's drawing more power than I actually anticipated.
It is a device that we'll be seeing a lot more of in the future. Right now, where they're just not available for us to sell, but like Robbie says, they're hardware ready. They're working on the software. You see in the Race Studio 3 beta, the public beta, you'll see if you look in there as a device, you can open up a PDM 08 and a 32, see what some of the setup is. We're working on getting that all done, and then we'll be able to start selling them. What you're going to see in the future, if we're 2 years down the road, when we look back now and when we're looking at devices, there'll be a lot of PDMs with displays, and the PDM will be the dash, the logger running a dash and a PDM, right? That it'll end up being the core of a vehicle, and then it'll handle a lot of the tasks that we've been talking about here. So multiple different displays and some
basically
other things.
Pull out your fuse box, pull out your relay systems, put in a PDM, and simplify the wiring and the complexity of wiring a vehicle. Everything becomes electronic at that point.
And being able to record it and understand it and troubleshoot much easier than a trouble light, going around and trying to figure out what's going on. So perfect. Let's kind of close it out with, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. And the amount of knowledge that we've shared here has been something we get a lot of questions on it. So I hope you're all enjoying it as well. The last one is like Neil said, and we kind of touched on it a couple of times in little bits of where we were talking about some of our other loggers, but expansions and sensor additions to the data loggers. It kind of is this second line of information I've got down here across the bottom is, and we talked about which ones can expand and which ones can't, but maybe Bryc, you can talk about expansions. We've got CAN expansions, we've got channel expansions, we got thermocouple expansions. Talk a little bit about what the expansions are, not deeply which device, but how they work, what they can do for us, and how we can daisy chain them and do multiples or things like that. Give us a little bit of a topic on the expansion side.
Yeah, so that's definitely a rabbit hole that you can go down pretty deep, but we do get a lot of questions on it. One of the things I definitely want to cover is AiM CAN versus vehicle CAN. So that's something, if I'm on the phone with someone who has some questions, comes up a lot. So We need to not to confuse the two. So we have our own proprietary AIM network that different devices, our dashes, our LCU ones, our smarty cams, our GPS 08s, all that stuff will communicate with each other on. And that's not to be confused with vehicle CAN, which is a separate input, a separate thing. And data hubs is where that comes in. So most of the MXS and most of the dash loggers and stuff are going to have two AIM CAN network expansions on their harness, and those are a lot of times going to be taken up pretty quickly, because if you have one is going to be taken up by a GPS almost right away for most applications, and then the other one would be used like if you have a smarty cam or LC1 or something along those lines. The data hub is the first expansion that I want to talk about, because that is an expansion of the AIM CAN network connections. So basically, if you wanted to run a smarty cam, a GPS, and an LCU1, and you don't have enough connections for that on your harness for your MXS, you'd plug a data hub into one of those expansions on the harness, and that would turn that expansion from 1 into 4. And that's also one of those things, you don't see it too often, but if you need to, you can daisy chain those together, plugging a data hub into another data hub. Then things like the channel expansion, those are for additional analog sensors. So say you've got a MXS and you've used up the 4 analog sensors or analog sensor connections on the primary harness. You've used up the other 4 analog sensors on the secondary harness, and you still have some more sensors you want to add. That's usually when you would start adding channel expansions. And channel expansions are one of those things that that operates on the AIM CAN network. So that would need to plug into the data hub, or if you do still have a port open on the harness or something like that, could plug in there. And then the analog sensors would connect directly to that channel expansion.
Yeah, I also like to use the channel expansions for remote mounting. So somewhere in the vehicle that I have a cluster of sensors, it may not make sense to run all the sensor cabling back to the primary dash. I can do it with one communication cable to the channel expansion, and then it becomes a remote hub. So if I put one in my engine bay, all my engine sensors can be managed there, and I run one cable back to the dash.
Yeah, very, very good idea. Sometimes you get the back of the car, you've got, temperatures and pressures and a whole bunch of things. Maybe you got 4 sensors you want to do back there. Boy, it so simplifies the wiring to run just that one back there, and then short one. So yeah, very good point, Robbie. I enjoy it. I always think, and I'm going to oversimplify it a little bit, but your data hubs, right, compared to the channel expansions that Bryc did a good job of explaining. That CAN data hub, that AIM specific CAN data hub, I always think of it as it's almost like a power strip, right? You plug in one, and then on the back end of that, you've got 4 now that you can plug into. There's no configuration. It's part of our CAN network, right? So you can just, and then if you daisy chain again, now you plug one into one of those. Now you've got an additional 4, right? You've used up one, but you've got an additional one. It's such a powerful system where you can we can give them to you in different lengths, so you can put those where you want them, and just plug and play basically. The channel expansions, we do have to do. You have to tell what sensors are plugged into it, and a couple other smaller things, but it's still fairly easy to configure. But the AIM CAN hubs are just plug and play. So. Perfect. Anything else about sensors and expansions? I've got the term up here as we're kind of finishing up. I've got the term bridges. Robbie, what does a bridge do for you? And you got CAN bridges, EC. What is that little part of it?
Bridges act as essentially a master device. So on a vintage car, no CAN bus, we can use an RPM bridge. Let's say you're more interested in the video aspect. You can have an RPM bridge that has our proprietary CAN bus attached to it and an RPM interface also attached to it. You connect to the coil or the distributor or the TAC output, and then you can feed that signal directly to the camera system. It also gives you a way to easily turn it on, to charge it, and manage the camera in a much more hands-off way. So we have an RPM bridge, we have a CAN RS-232 bridge, and these are great for cars that maybe already have a data system, but they want to take advantage of our SmartyCam as an add-on. They want to get the data, they hook up to the CAN bus or the serial communication, and we can then process it and send it to our camera system to manage the overlays.
Perfect. Perfect. Yep. I think that's, again, making this a very configurable system. Like Robbie said, maybe you don't want a full data system, and you just want that camera, but you do want RPM, and we can do that. We have ECU bridges where you can bring in information just from the ECU, so you get more than just RPM, right? So there's different ways of doing that. So those bridges are very powerful tools to work in specific environments. So. And we talked about dashes off and on during this thing. I think we're not gonna go into the karting systems this time. I think maybe we do another one of these, and it's the Micron 5 and its expansion and what it can do. I think we can have our own discussion about that, mainly for time at this point. But and then of course we've got our stopwatches. A lot of you have them. It's just been a standard device. We've had them for a long time, and I know when I go to the track, that's one of the first things I grab. I just love the AiM stopwatch. It's just another piece of hardware that we have that I really like. Being able to time multiple people with splits, it's a pretty powerful tool. Okay, I see we've answered all of the questions that are in the Q&A box.
From Tommy, do I need an extension? No, it's in the chat.
It's in the chat, okay.
Do I need an extension to use SmartyCam with an MXL2? No, the SmartyCam when purchased comes with a CAN interface cable. So it has the connecting cable to go from the SmartyCam to the master device, in your case, the MXL2. So everything should be in a box, just don't forget the mount.
And these conversations go on forever, right? But I just had a series of conversations in the last day or so with a user that wants to use his SmartyCam and then bring in external audio. That cable that Robbie just talked about that comes in the box, if you know you want to add in a scanner or your comms unit from your driver coach with the normal 1/8" audio cable, we have a cable that will replace that cable that runs between your AiM CAN and your SmartyCam that has audio in. Another an external monitor that you can put, external microphone that you can put, somewhere else in the car other than just at the camera. So all sorts of cool little things that, that we can continue to talk about. But that little cable is, I've just loved using those in the past with, if you want to know the pit to driver communication, have that overlaid directly into your SmartyCam audio stream. So every time you push the button and talk to your crew, or the crew talks to you, or you got a scanner listening to the official channels, it's being put into your SmartyCam audio. That's just a swap out of that cable that Robbie just talked about.
It certainly makes it more colorful
sometimes
when you're watching it.
Sometimes, and we just need to video editing sometimes is your best friend if you've had a bad day. So anyway, I think that's about as far as we'll go here. I'm going to turn it over to, as I kind of move the slides ahead and start looking at some other things. Bryc, you have anything else you'd kind of like to add? I know I added a little bit there at the end.
I mean, I think we covered most of the stuff that would need to be covered in at least like the 101 version of this. Yeah. There's, like I said, there's definitely some more rabbit holes we can go down as far as all the connections of different modules and stuff like that. But I think for today we're probably all right.
Perfect. Exactly. I mean, it's much deeper, but what I really like about what we've done today is this will be, we're going to put this out on YouTube as it shows right here, and it'll get out there in the next hour or so. And these are questions that all of us techs here at AiM, we get these questions all the time, and love to answer them, and love to, I especially love to talk about racing and race cars and different things and give all sorts of cool options. But it's great that we'll be able to have this out there for folks to be able to listen to and get a good idea of where they want to go. We are always open, not only from the LearnFast e-training video site on YouTube, where this will be as the rest of them, but we're always open to phone calls. Even if you've watched this video and you have some more questions, give us a holler, 1-800-718-9090, and chat with one of us, and start even fine tuning more what you're after. But hopefully we've given you the bigger picture ideas of what's kind of available out there for you. Okay. The next thing I'd like to talk about is our next webinar. this one's kind of a big deal for us. We've been I've been chatting with John a little bit here and there. John at autoware.com does longtime race car engineer, racer. Has been successful at many different levels, as you can see from the pictures here. But one of the things that I've learned about John is learned from him is he does these webinars that he does on, I don't remember which evenings. We'll talk more about it on Tuesday. But John does a ton of AIM specific webinars, and kind of his focus is on profiles and math channels, something we've talked a little bit about here, but I think everybody is going to enjoy chatting with John on Tuesday, some of the deeper stuff that he does, and it's going to give you a little bit of a taste in some of his webinars that he does on his site, and we'll give you the option to go and maybe step to the next level and chat with John about those on his site and some of the webinars he does. John's going to be here. We're going to talk about pretty deep profiles, math channels, but starting even on a bigger level of terminology and just some stuff, the quick 10 minutes of, hey, this is what we're going to talk about today, and we want everybody on the same page. So I've co-presented with John before at some seminars, and always have enjoyed him. He's a smart guy, and I think a lot of you guys are really going to enjoy this. So
look at that picture of
that
measures graph, XY plot, histogram. This is going to be an interesting one. I'll certainly be here.
Absolutely, and the other two pictures are him as a race car engineer on a pole winning car at Indianapolis, and a Talladega pole winning car as well. So he knows his stuff when it comes to engineering, and he really knows his stuff when it comes to AIM and profiles and math channels. So looking forward to John being here at our next one. Thanks again, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Here's some contact information for you. If you want to talk to Bryc or Robbie or I via email, ask any questions about some of the stuff we just talked about today. There you go. So I appreciate everybody coming. It's we're here in we're in August now, and we're in the heat of the race season, and with lots of good contacts and phone calls, and our guys are running like crazy. Welcome to motorsports in this compressed year. So having a good time. We're going to continue to do these. You've already got scheduled in those of you that are attending live through the end of August. We're probably going to extend that through and start looking into some September dates. So just keep that in mind. You'll get an email about that in the future. So again, thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it, and looking forward to John on next Tuesday, and we'll see you guys all there.